Welcome to the lecture request context. Welcome to the lecture request context. I'm going to teach you how to use request context and how to create a wrapper around it and make it injectable, so we avoid polluting the code base with not needed code lines. And now, what is request context? Request context is ordinance feature that allows application metadata, such as trace ID or whatever we need to pass, to flow with the request to the receiving grains, even to say to the chain of receiving grains. So we can trace the request. And the feature is implemented by a public static class, RequestContext, and this class exposes two methods, get and set. And now let's dive into it. Now I'm going to show you how the request context works and how to implement it simply. And then we move to some more advanced example. How to wrap it into the wrapper which can be injected. So let's start firstly simply. I'll show you how to save something to the request context. We are here in the client before we are calling grains. So we say request context set, and it accepts key and value. So the key could be trace ID for us, and the value could be GUID, new GUID. We do the same for another call. So firstly we are calling grain with the ID 0, and secondly we are calling grain with the ID 1. Now let me implement it in the grain. So let's get our request context. So we can say var trace ID equals request context get trace ID. Trace ID, and let's write it out. We can use logger. So say logger dot log information. We can use string interpolation again, just to have nicely formatted result. And we say trace ID is trace ID, and grain ID is grain ID. Here it's a primary key. Now let me show you how does it work. If I run it, for both grains we should get two different trace IDs. Yeah, it's building, it's starting. Let me open it a little. We start client as well. And in the application output, we should be able to see the trace IDs. So let me search for it. Sorry, how did we call it? With the capital T. So, grain with the ID 0 has trace ID of this GUID. So ending or starting with 882. If we continue, grain with ID 1 has trace ID starting with 156. And if I continue again, grain with the ID 1 has exactly the same GUID like the grain with the same ID. So this works. And just imagine, chaining, like we have more grains and the same trace ID goes with the request through all of these grains. So we can nicely log our wait or our request path. So it's really handy thing. And now another thing. Now let's just imagine we have like thousands of methods. And do we really want to mess up all the methods with writing RequestContext.get, etc. so the code becomes unreadable? There will be a lot of request context all over the code. Wouldn't it be better to create a wrapper and inject it there? I guess so. So let me show you how to do it. Let's get rid of this. And we can get rid of this as well. And let's create wrapper around request context. So we add new folder. We can call it context. And we have to create new class. The context. And we can call it Orleans request context. Perfect. And what we can do there? We can give it public property, which returns GUID. That's what we are storing, and we can call it like trace ID. You can use lambda, you know, we are living in the future. And we say request context dot get, and we want to get trace ID. If it's now, we can return empty GUID for the cases when it's not set yet. And if it's not now, we return request context get trace ID. And we should cast it to GUID, because it's always GUID for us. Perfect. To make it injectable, to register it into DI, it has to have interface. So we simply extract interface. Perfect. Yes. And we can inject it to the DI. So we can say this is our configure services part of the silo implementation, and we register another service into the DI. And we'll do it like Orleans request context. Hopefully no typos. Alright. And Orleans request context. It can be singleton, it's fine as well. So we are registered in DI. And now let's think, do we need to even put it to the grain? No, we can put it to the filter. So we register it, we consume it in the filter. So we'll go to the logging filter, we go to the constructor, and we inject Orleans request context. We can call it context, this works. Initialize field context, let's clean up. It's private read only, so it should be with underscore. I'm not pushing you into it, but it's my practice. So that we have access to it, and we can actually write down trace ID here. It could be handy through the debugging. And the trace ID is context dot trace ID, and we do the same. after the grain method is triggered. And we can do exactly the same here in the log error, and we should be good to go. So our trace ID will have a nice journey with the request through all the chained grains, through all the system. If we run it, so we are running silo first. Now we run client, which will connect to the silo and will send our requests. Okay, client connected, it did something, and now we can search for our trace IDs. And you can nicely see that in the logging filter we have this trace ID, and for another calls we have different trace ID. See, this is really useful for logging. Let's say some exception is thrown somewhere, and the request is going through many grains, through many methods. You can nicely find it using this trace ID. Really handy thing, guys. So thanks for watching it, and see you soon.